Joining me today is Anca Rhone, the Group Strategy Director at MX, and she's going to teach us all how we can actually be more memorable, how our brand is more memorable for those customers. So Anca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I hope you are too. Today, we're going to talk about building a brand that buyers will remember. And not only remember, when they wake up in the morning, but remember when it's most important in a buying situation. Specifically, we're going to talk about how category entry points, and we will talk about what they are and how we can find them for your brand, can drive demand in B2B. But before we begin, a little bit about me. My name is Anca Rhone. I'm a Group Strategy Director at MX, and I bring over 20 years of brand strategy experience across both B2C and B2B worlds. And I had the pleasure and privilege to work across global and local clients. Prior to my engagement with MX, I worked at agencies such as Ogilvy, Leo Burnett, FCB, DDB, and across all these agencies on brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, SC Johnson, Abbott, Reckitt, Lysol Pro, and more. So I'm super excited to be here today with all of you. More than teaching, it's actually talking. I do love interaction. We have a chat. We have a little game that I hope you will play. But even beyond that, if you have thoughts, I know we are capturing all the questions. I'm happy to even answer them as we go. But definitely we have time at the end. So a bit about today. We're going to start by talking what we're really up against and a little bit of a hint. Your biggest competitor may not be who you think it is. We're going to talk about memory shortcuts that actually work and how category entry points unlock salience, salience being the ability to recall a brand in a buying situation. So when a need arises and I need a brand, I have the brand that we work on in mind. So after that, we're going to talk about what B2C brands know that most of the B2C brands still ignore. And that's why we're excited to have this webinar here, because we believe there is a huge opportunity to unlock here for all your businesses, and how we can turn CPs, so category entry points, into a memory machine. And all that is great, but how are we going to implement that? Well, we're going to talk about how we can build our own category entry point framework. This is going to be a step-by-step way to find, rank, and activate your brand demands moments. And then we're going to wrap up with some final thoughts and plenty of room for questions and discussion. So let's start with this meaningful quote. The most important search engine is still the one in your mind. I love this quote. It captures perfectly why we need to anchor brands in people's minds. When a situation occurs and we need a brand that can help us, we first search our mind. And only after that, we start asking our peers, we start perhaps looking online, we start perhaps looking at our notebooks. But first, we search our mind. And we want to be on people's minds, because if we are on their minds when that need arises, then we are in boardrooms with them. Then we are in decision-making rooms. Then our brand makes it to, we call it the list, the RFP list. We want to be on the RFP list from day one. There's a whole different research and talk about how if our brand is on the RFP list on day one, we are more likely to be winning the final deal, the final pitch. So we want to be on people's minds. And today is all about how we can create content to help us be on top of their mind. So because of this, you may be surprised, but your biggest competitor isn't who you think it is. It is not your competitors. It's actually forgetfulness. Most B2B marketers get beaten by not being remembered. Because when the need hits, we don't open spreadsheets or online queries groups or taking our phones and calling our peers. We open our memory. That's the first place that we go to. And if your brand is not there, it's not anywhere. And again, we want to be on that RFP list. So If we think about it, nobody buys cybersecurity for fun. Well, at least not in our experience. They buy it when something happens, something triggers that buying process. For example, a breach hits the headlines, or perhaps an audit fails, or a new compliance rule drops. This type of situations, and probably there are many more, it's just an example. This is what we call category entry points. In fact, we didn't call them. Jenny Romaniak out of Aaron Bass Institute out in Australia, but global sensation with their How Brands Grow books, named them that way. Highly recommend if you haven't read these two books. This is part two, and ensure you buy the revised edition because it has B2B specific research and information. So, what are category entry points? They are real world triggers that make a buying journey begin. So, what does that mean? That means that if our brand is not mentally available in those moments, it doesn't matter how good your product is. You're not in the room. If the brand doesn't come to mind when that need arises, it's as if it doesn't exist. We want to be on their mind so we can be in that room, in that boardroom, decision-making room, wherever the decision that starts the RFP process happens. So category entry points are really a way to map demand moments. A little definition, and there is plenty of definitions available, but in short, they are a need, a reason, a motivation, a trigger that pushes someone to consider a category or get into a buying state. So it's a need, a reason, a motivation. Like we were talking with that cybersecurity, when something happened and now I need a solution for that. What is the brand that comes to mind first that can help me with that solution? The B2C world knows about that. And in fact, if you will, I would like to play a little game with all of us. I will talk about a specific trigger or a need state or a moment. And please type in the chat the brand that comes to mind associated with that need or with that trigger. So let's imagine, and these are all everyday B2C brands. So very popular, hopefully they come to mind. So when you are thirsty on a hot day and you want something really refreshing, you want perhaps a little pick me up with that refreshment, perhaps a little sip of happiness, perhaps you have a little celebration and you're looking for something that is non-alcoholic, something refreshing to have with your friends at your gathering. What brand comes to mind if you're thirsty, if you want something refreshing by yourself or together with your friends? Starbucks, okay. Coke, very nice. Coca-Cola, Coke, very nice. Yes, it is Coca-Cola. Starbucks would definitely be the pick-me-up. Coke has been advertising that refreshing. I have it in my mind when I said refreshing. I literally had the opening the bottle and the in my mind, very refreshing sounds. And they have been associating themselves with celebrations. If we think about classic Christmas advertising, they've always been top of mind with this brand. Thank you for playing along. I have two more. Okay, the second one is you need a break. This can be in the morning or in the afternoon, but you need a little break, and a little chocolatey break would really, hit the spot. And this is something that you can reach out and immediately feel like you're having a break. Please type in the chat your answers for you need a break. What brand comes to mind? Kit Kat. Yes, yes. All of you writing that, you have won. Amazing bragging rights. It is Kit Kat. Very good. Okay, now if I would have said if you're hangry, you would have said probably Sneakers, but we're not going to go there because I have another one. Yes, you got it, sneakers. Yes. Okay. I have another one here. It is you want an escape. This is perhaps a mental escape. You can't really go anywhere. You might be with your friends or you might be by yourself, but you're having images of the seaside. You wish you would be there, but you're stuck on your porch, or perhaps you're stuck in your local bar. What is the brand that comes to mind for a little escape? We have Honeycrisp, we have Southwest. Let's guess this one is a little bit harder. This is an escape. Okay. It is Corona. Yes, we have one answer with Corona. Instagram could do it for sure. Yes. So Corona has associated, or Captain Morgan, yes. Corona has associated itself with those images of the beach. We can be in the comfort of our room and we can enjoy a little Corona, and it's a little escape. Headspace. They're all very good answers. Okay, thank you so much for playing this wonderful game with us. So, the same is true in B2B. They're often more complex, but equally powerful. For example, we need to reduce compliance risk. You may think of ServiceNow. We are scaling and we need to centralize data. We may think of Snowflakes. We need to buy domestic steel. We may think of Zekelman. These brands became successful by associating their brand with need states or trigger moments that matter. And they chose those that are best for their business to set them up in a winning position. Okay, so we know what category entry points are, but how do we use them? So we use them to grow our brand. And the more we associate with more category entry points, the more we're going to be recalled when different situations occur. And the theory says that to grow faster, a brand needs to own somewhere between 5 to 7 category entry points. But we know that sometimes that's hard. For example, the example on the screen is for data integration. We have looked at 8 different category entry points. And together with our clients, we actually identified the 5 most important category entry points. For example, process automation. We wanted our client brand to come to mind, or mergers and acquisitions. But we know that 5 to 7 category entry points could require a good investment or a significant investment. And we know budgets are tight, unfortunately, especially this year. Hopefully it's temporary. So if the budgets are tight, start small. Focus on the most frequent, most important buying situations your brand is best positioned to win. And then we can build from there. As resources grow, we can expand those associations to cover more entry points. We categorize and prioritize. We know which ones we would like to own. Perhaps we don't have the budget right now. We start with the ones that are most important. But then when we grow and we have the budget, we actually start expanding our associations, while also, when we can, refreshing the ones we have claimed, because we want to be top of mind with those category entry points. That way, we build broader, fresher memory structures and stay on top when it matters most. And why do we want to do that? Why do we want to build a brand, build around category entry points, and now not necessarily how we have done it all this time? Well, when we do it this way, we do a lot more than just raising awareness. So what is awareness is, right, they would know about our brands, they have seen our brands, they have heard our brand name, they might have positive feelings about our brand. Well, we want all that, and we want them to associate our brand with a need or a trigger, like we said in the cybersecurity example. So you had an audit failing, you had a breach happening. I want my brand to come to mind when that happens. So you reach out to me. So we're not just raising awareness of the brand, we're actually telling them how we can help them. And when that need arises, that they will think of our brand. And that, in effect, is creating future demand. So when we do even brand awareness programs, we actually do a lot more than that, because we do creation of future demand and as well as capturing the current demand in market. And that's why are we creating future demand with that, is because we know that most buyers aren't in the market right now, right? Only 5% of the market is currently looking for a solution. 95%, they're not in the market right now. But when they will be, the brand that they remember is the one that shows up in the right context, solving the right need again and again. So we want to associate our brand and be known not only for what's our brand name, how they feel about us. We want them to be associated with the needs that we can help them with. And if you're like me, everything becomes simpler, and I understand it better if I see some examples. So we actually have 3 examples for you. The first example is from SAP. You may be familiar with them. They once ran functional feature ads. Technically, they had a superior product, and they like to talk about that, but not anymore. In their latest campaign, they're trying to associate themselves with need states or triggers, and they're prospecting clients that they can help them be ready for all these need states. And I selected just few. They have a lot more, but few of them are, we need to scale faster than our systems allow. So that's scaling faster. Or our supply chains can't take another hit. That's supply disruption. Or AI is moving faster than we are. That's AI integration. Doesn't everyone talk about AI integration right now? It definitely seems that way, and it's right. So these are category entry points, right? The supply chain disruptions, scaling faster, AI integration. So they have created this beautiful campaign with Be Ready, associating themselves with, being the right partner for when all these needs arrive. Be ready. And they had some fun with the execution. These are actually created by AI as well. So this is SAP. The next example comes from Xero. And you might not have heard about it. It's a small business accounting software that recently launched, and they say that they show up when your side hustle becomes a real business. So they're helping companies that started as a side hustle and becomes a real business. And how do they help? Well, they say they can supercharge your business, or as we'll see next, run it without the drama. What is supercharge? Supercharge is basically grow faster. But what I love about this example is that they use distinctive language, and that's another lesson that we can learn. We don't have to, yes, the category entry point is, I want to grow faster. All, companies want to grow faster. But how do we say it in a way that is distinctly us? So when the need arises, we actually are so distinctly, anchored in their mind that they will recall our brands. And they use beautifully the word supercharge. And as you'll see in the execution, I always, with tech, I hope the video will play. So let's see it, but you'll see how they use supercharge creatively.
All done, Sue?
Yep, and not just with your hair. With the help of Xero accounting software, I've sorted my numbers too. So now I can take my business anywhere.
That's it. Where to next?
Wherever we want.
Next Xero, what the next?
I love they were very literal with their supercharge, and that makes it really funny. Humor is in this year and is here to stay for sure. So this is how they wanted to associate themselves with the grow faster category entry point in their own distinctive word, supercharge. Next one is not a video, is an outdoor or a print ad, and it's run your business without the drama. They must have had in their client's call, they said, I'm growing right now. I'm not big yet because they're turning from side hustle into real businesses. I don't want any drama. I want something simple. And they brought their humor to life beautifully to anchor it. The more memorable it is, the more it's going to anchor in our minds associated with the right need. So when you need to grow your business without drama, now you're going to think of Xero. So that was our second brand example. We have one more brand example, and I'm pretty sure you're going to like this. This is Salesforce, and specifically for their platform called Agentforce. They launched a brand platform called What AI Was Meant to Be, again for Agentforce, and they had several category entry points that they sort of like went after. I have seen about 5. I brought here 3. They might have more, but they are beautifully executed, again with humor. And the ones that we brought here today, the first one is how AI helps you with productivity, and then we're going to see 2 others. Again, the use of humor is fantastically used here to help anchor that specific category entry point in our mind.
Yeah, still holding. If my AC company had Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce, an AI agent would have flagged the issue and automatically helped me find someone to service it. What?
Wow, you are moist.
Well, how'd you get an appointment?
Dude just magically showed up.
Agentforce, sir.
Huh. Oh. Sorry, dude. Cold air's getting out.
Agentforce helps manufacturers prevent appliance defiance. It's what AI was meant to be.
I can't see this without smiling. All right, the next one is gonna be about better customer experience. Again, how is Agentforce, so specifically AI, going to help us with our business? They're especially talking about this now as the whole world is shifting from hype to application when it comes to AI.
I didn't use Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce, so an AI agent didn't see me the fastest route to my gate. Which has
changed. I'll tell the pilot to hold the plane. They got an app for that, dude.
Agentforce helps Heathrow create a first-class experience. Agentforce. It's what AI was meant to be.
I love that they took Heathrow, the busiest airport ever, to show this. It's like a torture test situation. Again, all aimed to be memorable and to anchor that category entry point, better customer experience with Salesforce Agentforce platform. Okay, one last one. Super fun to see the Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. They have become distinctive assets for the brand. Matthew McConaughey has been collaborating with Salesforce for a while, so he is already associated with the brand. And Woody Harrelson, they launch a big platform during the Super Bowl, and they're just continuing to associate themselves with more category entry points. Let's see this last example.
If my mortgage lender used Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce, a digital agent would have helped me pre-qualify before my dream house was sold. Well, how?
The buyer's lender used Agentforce.
Well, who's the buyer?
Hey, brah. Welcome to Casa de Wood.
Oh, jeez.
Morning, Mr. Harrelson.
Pool's open next week. Bathing suit optional.
Agentforce helps lenders prevent finance fiascos. It's what AI was meant to be.
Great. So we have seen examples of category entry points in paid programs, but I hear you say, thank you, but how do we turn this into content that creates demand? Well, once we know the CPs that matter to you, your content should absolutely become a memory machine. So we always start with the category entry point that we want to own. Let's say that all of us here on the call work together and we want to own mergers and acquisitions. In that case, our content, the content that we create, needs to meet that need states head on. And we have an example in just a bit of how, it's a hypothetical example of how we can do that. Second, when we write our content, write for recall, not just for search. Great CEO gets you found, but great salience gets you chosen. So again, we want to anchor the brand in their mind. And then last but not least, ensure that we build consistent brand associations. This takes patience and discipline. If we want to own that mergers and acquisitions, we need to continue to say mergers and acquisitions. We can refresh that content. It doesn't have to be the same, but it has to link back to that content. Often, as marketers, we're the first ones that actually get bored with our content strategies, and we switch away too soon, but resist the urge to switch, because true salience is built through repetition, not through novelty. So we talked about an example. All of us here on this call, let's say that we would work at a B2B SaaS company, and we need to create content associated with mergers and acquisitions. So what can we create? Well, let's say we would create a thought leadership piece. It can be a white paper, it can be an ebook, and let's say that will be called the hidden IT risks that can derail mergers and acquisitions deals. So we can have that first piece of content as a thought leadership piece. Then we can create together a social ad. And this social ad can actually be on Instagram, or it can be on LinkedIn, or it can be on Facebook. Wherever our audience is, we can actually put our social ad there. And it will say something like this: merging companies is hard, merging systems shouldn't be. But would also link to content like mergers and acquisitions integration playbook. So one more piece of content there. And then finally, we would also publish a case study. We can publish it on our website, we can publish it on our blog, of how one company integrated easily, of course, how else, with our wonderful B2B SaaS platform, integrated easily 7 business units after the acquisition. Through each one of these content pieces, our SaaS company would associate itself with mergers and acquisitions, because for all of us, that is an important and high frequency CEP, category entry points. So the next time while their clients were going to be in market, they would think of us. So say Pepsi acquired Poppi very recently. When Pepsi was preparing to acquire Poppi, our brand would have come in the minds of the Pepsi executives to help them integrate the systems. Okay, we talked a lot about how we would use it, what we would do, but how can we find them? So we put together a little framework. We first start with identifying the category entry points. So how do we do that? Well, we talk to our customers and sales. Many of our clients, their sales executives start demos, for example, by asking the question, what needs do you have? What brings you here? How can we help you meet your needs? That's a perfect place to start. Otherwise, we can talk to our customers. We can have one-on-one interviews and ask them, why are you in the market for this? How can we help you? What is happening? So we gather a lot of their need states, right, or triggers. We can also talk to customers. If we're just starting a new business, we can talk to prospective customers. We can talk to customers of other platforms to see why they chose a certain brand. How did that company help them with their need states, so we know to better associate ourselves with that need, so our brand wins that deal next time. Then we can also analyze triggers in lost and won deals. Many times we have records or spreadsheets with that type of information, so we can look through that. At the end of this discovery process, if you will, we create a short list of category entry points. So that's step number 1, identify. Step number 2 is prioritization. So we choose the ones that are right for you. And how do we do that? I like to think that there are 3 principles. First one is focus on frequency, how often it happens. For example, for our data integration example, mergers and acquisitions is a great, very frequent category entry point. So again, frequency, how often it happens. Second, relevance. How well does it actually map to your offer? Like, is your offering meeting that category entry point? And then third, ownership. How ownable it is for you. Perhaps your brand has communicated something like that in the past, and therefore you're more likely to refresh those associations and sort of like be already one step ahead. So that's prioritize. Step number 3 is activate. We then map our category entry points to paid media campaigns, content marketing calendars, sales enablement. Everything should be organized around the category entry point. And then finally, measure and optimize. So we can measure our performance different ways. We can have category entry points recall surveys, so quantitative studies where we can see what do they associate our brand with. If we have a brand tracker, we can actually have a category entry point overlay. We can actually look at content engagement by CEP, by category entry point, and so on. And of course, based on this result, next year or next phase, work on optimizing the content for next year. So I talked a lot, and we are here in our final thoughts. So I will leave you with 3 final thoughts before we open up for questions. Number 1 is don't just aim for awareness. Don't just try to do something so they can recognize your logo, so they know your name. Actually aim for salience. Be the brand that comes to mind first when a buying need arises. So you are the first one that comes to mind, or you're on a short list, so you get on that RFP list. So that's number 1. Don't aim for awareness, aim for salience. Number 2, don't know if you ever heard this quote. I didn't write it, but I couldn't agree more with it. It's the brand that gets remembered is the brand that gets bought. It's perfect in summarizing this idea of being salient and being associated with category entry points. So because of that, don't just show up in search, show up in memory. So you can be the brand that gets remembered and therefore the brand that gets bought. And last but not least, don't just chase current demand, create future demand. Current demand, as we talked earlier, is only 5% of the market. But we can really have a chance here to build a brand that creates future demand via these category entry points and attracts the rest of the 95% of the market while also getting in the current demand. Because if in that moment they have that need, you will then pop for them as well. So building a brand with a surrounding category entry points basically covers the 5% of current demand plus the 95% of the future demand, setting you well for success in the future. And with that, I have concluded my presentation, and I'm gonna give it back to Robert.
Oh, that was so wonderful. I love talking about brand so much, and it's one of those things that we don't get to talk about it nearly often enough. So I'm super happy that to have watched that and learned from it. Yes, we have some time for questions, and we're gonna get to those. And so if you do have questions, put them into the Q&A box, and we'll take them as they come in. A couple have come in as you were talking, which I'll get to. But as that's starting to roll in, I want to start with something that you said earlier. You know, one of the things that I noticed so often is that, you know, when the whole world is a whiteboard, right, you can start to come up with all these category entry points, right, that you feel like, you know, you probably should be trying to own. But one of the things that you said was that the brands that grow the fastest typically own between 5 and 7 of these category entry points. And so I'm wondering what's what in your experience is sort of the smartest way for us to start narrowing down this giant list that we put up on the whiteboard and that that we're trying to rank for, in terms of, getting that list down to 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever the right number is?
Right, great question. I'm pulling back this slide because it was touched in the prioritize section. So again, I like to think of 3 important principles. The number 1 is the frequency. How frequent is this, each category entry point? As an example, because I love examples, in data integration, mergers and acquisitions raises to the top because different companies have different systems and they need to all align and talk to each other. So frequency is number 1. The second one is relevance, how well it maps to your portfolio, what you offer. Is my portfolio answering that category entry point perfectly? Or perhaps one of my competitors is better mapped. In that case, I definitely don't want to associate myself with that because I'm sending them to my competitor. And the number 3 is actually ownership. Have we done something like that in the past? Even if we weren't thinking about category entry points, we all, the idea of answering the customer's needs, it's not new. So have we had something in the past, either in our DNA, something that we have talked about that's specific, or is there in our portfolio something that absolutely answers that category entry point and we serve it better than anyone else? That's ownership as well. So frequency, relevance, ownership.
Fantastic. And I'm going to ask a personal question because I'm just curious. Have you ever experienced where a brand wants to, being conscious of, like ownership, have we earned our way into this? Can we actually own this category entry point, et cetera? Have you ever had experience or heard where brands may want to steal a category entry point from someone else, right? So in other words, they are known for something that we feel like is really important. And how do you start to think about how you might steal that category entry point from a competitor?
Oh, I love this question. Yes, definitely you can. And there are different ways. If you can do it with size, if you have the budgets, simply
right, exactly.
You draw attention, right? It's like it's all an attention game. But then if we don't have that, because not everyone has the luxury of the bigger budgets these days, how do you do it smarter? Like, I love challenger brands. I actually love tremendously working on challenger brands because they outsmart the competition. That example with Zero is one of them. They made something so incredibly memorable with that supercharge. Supercharge is not unique to them, but they made it in a way that is so funny that the next time, if I have a side hustle and I become a real business, you bet I would call them. Because they captured my mind, my memory. I like them. I like their sense of humor. I now think that we can be friends. So next time I have that need. I'm sure other people have said that too in other ways, but I didn't like them as much. So they actually stole that category entry point from someone else.
Nice. Very nice. This question came in from the audience, from Simon out there, who said, and it fits right into how we started this by talking about the fact that we don't get to talk about brand nearly as often as we'd like. He talked about balance, and his question was, in B2B enterprise marketing, how should we start to balance the short-term conversion tactics, which can really be a pressure, like pay-per-click and account-based marketing and webinars, with the idea of long-term sort of brand building activities that sort of create those memory structures around a category entry point, right? So how do you recommend balancing those things?
Yeah, fantastic question. First of all, so the word balance is amazing, and it should be a balance. And there is definitely recent research. In case you haven't seen it, I guess if you guys help us facilitate, I'm happy to send it. But there's research that basically says that when we have both brand and performance, we actually get a 40% lift, actually a 60% lift on our performance. If we have one or the other, we get a 40% penalty. So investing too much in performance and too little in brand is actually, you're penalizing yourself. That's point number one. Point number two is, this is the beauty of category entry points. The category entry points help you with the long term, but help you snatch the performance in the short term. Because if you are about mergers and acquisitions, you might have different tactics, but you can do something with merger and acquisition that is performance based to capture those people that are looking, searching right now, and snatch those, while also making sure that you create your pipeline of future demand in the future. Otherwise, if we go only in performance, we will get everyone interested right now, and then next year we wake up not having anyone that actually wants to work with us right now. So we personally love and recommend to all of our clients to work with category entry points because of this balance. It makes it beautiful. It makes your brand stand for one thing and one thing only in both brand and demand or performance.
Wonderful, wonderful. This question came in from Barb, and it's a fascinating one to me as well, because I get asked about it all the time when I work with my clients, which is, how do you, and I'm going to insert, Barb didn't ask this, but I'm actually going to insert part of a question, or do you actually connect sales with your category entry points, or your success in getting those things? In other words, can you connect it to sales, or should you even try to connect it to sales?
Yeah, well, great question. It should be clear once, it depends on your system and the journey, but if eventually they get to a sales representative, sales demo, what brought you here? How can we help you? I mean, those needs are going to come. And in fact, this should be a continuous learning and optimization loop. We're trying to associate ourselves. We are then, seeing perhaps in the deals that we have signed, what needs have we answered? And then there's a whole question about, do we need to then broaden up? Do we need to be known for more than just the one? So that's one way where we are, trying to connect depending on the buying journey. Another one is, again, in those, if we have brand trackers or any other where it's not the direct, but it's an indirect, what are we known for? Have we seen, our sales number going up? Because we can see some correlation between, this category, we are known for this category entry point, we are signing now more deals, and then we can have a sort of like a qualitative assessment with our friends from sales. Have you heard that they're coming for this? In our case, with the data integrations, mergers and acquisitions, it's something that is very often, mentioned in that type of category. So by the time they would get to our clients and they're talking to their sales, they would basically talk about, I am merging, I'm preparing for a merger, and I want, so they would know.
Yeah. I'll throw out one other thought as well, which is something that something that a CMO at a B2C company told me one point, but it also applies to B2B, which is, he measured it based on the sort of the strength of the brand being remembered by how much they had to discount to get sales, right? So if they were discounting less, it's hard to draw a direct line and correlative to that, but it's pretty indicative that if you have to discount less, your brand is becoming more trusted and more, more powerful.
I love that. There is so much research out there, Robert, about the association between a strong brand and price elasticity.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can actually ask more if they like you and your brand. And they know they got to you because they know that you can help them with a specific need. Therefore, they're ready and willing to pay. So it's a great build.
Exactly. This question comes from Simon, and I think it's also a fascinating one in the world of B2B, where Simon says, so how much do you think in the B2B world, when you have to deal with things like analysts and other people that cover your industry, who are sometimes the trusted resource to help you choose solutions, and so you spend so much of your time trying to get into their good graces, right? The world of the Forresters and the Gartners and the IDCs and all the sort of analysts that get asked for this. And so where does the role of brand memory, because people want to stay safe, nobody got fired for hiring IBM, the classic sort of line there, and all of that, how do those two things play together in the B2B world, where so much of the influence and brand memory is made up with either influencers or analysts or people that aren't necessarily your direct customers?
Well, they are our audience too. So first of all, fantastic question. So we should aim, we actually recommended to other clients to do exactly the same. When they talk to, let's say, distributors or, in insurance, right? Insurance companies, you work with brokers. They are human too, and they are thinking and recommending. So we should ensure that they know when this need arises, who is the company that can serve us with that. So to that point, we can create the same associations with our whatever the sales journey is and the whole sales ecosystem.
Yeah, fantastic. Are there any early, as you start these programs, are there any sort of early warning signals that a category entry point based sort of campaign or initiative or those things that you're trying to do aren't working or aren't sticking in memory? Are there some, what can we watch out for?
Yeah, fantastic question. So early is an interesting term, and it's could be right depending on how we define early. So
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Go back to the consistency point. So we have to be in and reinforcing that. So too early, if we're talking about 1 to 3 months, I would probably not recommend changing anything because it's too early. If early is, now I allowed it a little bit of time, and I'm seeing that in my, let's say I'm doing a brand tracker with a CP overlay, so with a category entry point overlay, I'm not showing up at all. If I'm looking at content engagement and it doesn't do anything for me, then I would question, is that the right category entry point for me? And perhaps even a second one, or perhaps the second actually becomes the number one. Am I memorable enough? Sometimes we're a bit too safe. I brought in examples that are not safe because, they're not dangerous. I actually hate the word safe, but meaning they had meat on them. They had something that helps us remember. And that with consistency, staying on it, it will help lodge into our memory. If we are a little bit cautious, I would say, and often, we sound like our competitors and like the category, that's not going to help us set us apart. So then I would question if perhaps the content should be a little bit more specific, more distinctive to help that association over time.
It's fantastic. And just generally speaking, when you and I know this is too broad of a question, but again, this is just a personal question that I find I wrestle with all the time. Is there a general time frame that we can start to put to this? Like, can we think of this? Do we need to think of it in years, or can we think of, and I know there's so many, well, it depends, but is there any sort of general time frame we can be looking at?
Yeah, it definitely depends, like you said, but I think a year, it's pretty solid. Like with anything that needs a little bit of seeding and a little bit of repetition, a year is a good time frame. What I would probably do depends, like you said, on the budgets. I would recommend monitoring every 6 months. And, if after 6 months we don't see anything, that's okay. Let's wait until the year and then we'll talk then. But then if you do it, every 6 months, if our budgets allow, I know that's a luxury for some. So then, I would, if the budget is not there, I would recommend every year. And then we see where do we take it from there. Definitely there is some optimization. I always think of it as a continuous loop. Let's see how we're doing. Let's see what we need to change. Again, the questions of, is that the right category entry point? Always look at the competition. The good thing is right now, not many people actually do category entry points. So, but as the more, catch up and they hear and they see success from others, they might. So then that's why it's good to monitor. Is the competition saying, are we battling for the same ones? Is our portfolio serving them beautifully, or the competition perhaps has more right? Is the content bold enough and memorable enough to be sticking to memory? And then we'll take it from there.
That's awesome. Great advice, and a great place for us to sort of wrap it up. Thank you so much for this. This was so wonderful.